What's going on, everybody? Mortem here, this time bringing you my first impressions of Gothic 2. Recently, just a few months ago actually, I reviewed the original Gothic after playing it for the first time, so of course now we're on to the second title. That said though, when you're playing these games for the first time these days, that journey starts with getting them running, as it requires a little bit of work to get them to load, but luckily, thanks to a dedicated community, it's still pretty easy. Though I did want to mention in this video that recently, just a few months ago in November, Gothic 2 on Steam got an update that saw the original classic version added as a beta branch, which allows you to play it as the baseline as opposed to Night of the Raven, which is a mod that changed the entire game pretty significantly from what I understand. But while they made that available, it's still kind of pointless to do it that way, because the easier option is to just use the Steam Workshop beta branch, which will allow you to download the mods directly on Steam, which will solve both of the problems by allowing you to download the mods you need to get the game running to begin with, and then also installing the Gothic 2 Classic mod, which just lets you run the classic non-expansion version of the game as well. Though with that in mind, just to let everyone know, while I haven't played Gothic 2 before, I have had some conversations around the content and how to approach it, so what I've decided on is that I'm going to do my first run with Gothic 2 Classic, and then the subsequent runs, which there will likely be at least 2 of, I'll use the Night of the Raven version, which is the expansion that sort of rebalanced the entire game, as well as adding and changing a lot of stuff. And last but not least on that front, every time I talk about Gothic, people always mention the sort of overhaul mod called Chronicles of Murtana, I believe it is. That's a sort of standalone game unto itself. And while I won't be covering that as part of the review, at some point I'll eventually check it out and make a video about it, but it likely won't be a full review, but people ask me about it so much that I'll likely do it as part of a series at some point, if only just to take a quick look at it, as I like to keep the reviews to official releases. But now that we've got all that out of the way, and presumably you've got the game running, the introduction to Gothic 2 takes place pretty much right after the end of Gothic 1, as it is a direct sequel. So slight spoilers for Gothic 1 if you haven't played it, but the game kicks off with Zardos, a mage from the first game, saving you after your battle with the Sleeper that tore down the magic field that kept everyone trapped in the mining colony from the previous game. Now that barrier's come down, all of the convicts have escaped and are causing trouble sort of out in the wilderness for the main town of Corinus, which I'm very likely mispronouncing. But in addition to that, upon its dying breath, so to speak, the Sleeper called forth all of its minions, which have begun to attack surrounding areas, and you, as the hero, need to put them in their place and defeat them. Though your fight with the Sleeper and your near death that resulted in has stripped you of your former strength, requiring us to once again level ourselves up as a hero in classic Piranha Bytes fashion. Which brings me to my next first impression, and that is simply that Gothic 2 basically seems to just be a slightly better version of the original Gothic, as the fundamentals seem to be pretty much the same in terms of how you level up and advance. When you level up, you get learning points to spend on strength and dex, which are your main stats, and then there will be a variety of other skills as well that you can improve, which include weapons, bows. Eventually you can learn more specific skills like magic, alchemy, hunting, etc. And there seems to be a few variations from the original Gothic, but the core system seems to be the same, and they've improved a few other things as well, such as the control scheme being a little more obvious out of the gate, though there is an option to just use the previous game's control system as well, and it does take a little bit of getting used to as far as moving around goes, and overall the game looks a little better than Gothic 1 as well, with a few more options for resolutions, which makes playing through it a little easier, which also certainly helps out. But a nice change from the first game that I saw was, as opposed to having to run around the colony and meet the factions, they all three are kind of available right in the little starter town, which is the main town, and you pick one of those factions to join before sort of carrying on. And when you get to town, you see the guards and everything reacting to both the orcs, which have always been a problem, as well as the recently escaped convicts, as you seek out an artifact that Zardos told you to find. And so far, this is all making for a pretty interesting time, and in a lot of ways it seems like Piranha Bytes learned quite a bit in between Gothic 1 and 2, because my initial experience with this game largely comes down to it just being a slightly better version of Gothic, at least for the classic version so far. But that alone is very intriguing because Gothic was great if a little bit clunky. So if I play through this and it actually improved on a lot of things from Gothic, the prospect of that is pretty exciting for as much as I enjoyed the first one. Though even already I am even more curious than why people don't regard Gothic 3 quite as highly, and we'll talk about that when we actually get there. But so far, my first impressions for this game are that it is an upgraded version of Gothic 1 that has both smoothed out some of the clunkiness of the first title while also presenting you with a pretty engaging narrative that promises fights against dragons while looking for magical artifacts, and almost immediately throwing you into a situation of just trying to get into the city, and there are a variety of ways to accomplish that goal. And as soon as you get into the city, they give you even more objectives about which factions to join, who to support, side quests to undertake, all while you try to get at your larger goal of finding that artifact, which again just makes for an experience that even right away seems to just be an improved version of the first game, and I'm excited to dive into it more and explore some of its systems a bit and see just how much it fleshed out with some of these new things, as well as the narrative itself. But that is all I've got for you guys today. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I certainly hope you're looking forward to the review itself, because I personally am pretty excited to dive into this one, as the entire Gothic series has been highly requested for quite some time. But truly, thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. May you wander in wisdom and have an amazing day.